My name's Rebecca Brower, and I'm part of the Watch Me Grow Kenya team, and I want to give you a brief overview on the dietary assessment, which is part of this research study. As you probably know, you are doing a three-part assessment. The first is the anthropometric assessment with height, weight, and middle upper arm circumference, followed by the dietary assessment, and finally the cognitive assessment. We are obtaining this dietary information to look both at macro and micronutrient intake in these participants in Western Kenya. So the macronutrient intake includes things like calories, fat, and protein. And for micronutrients, we'll be looking at vitamins and minerals, and this helps us understand dietary diversity. We are using a multiple pass method, which means we'll ask each of the study participants a few different times about what they had to eat and drink over the course of the past 24 hours. And this allows them to think about not only what they've had, but also how much of it they've had and the preparation method that may have been used. So the first pass, you'll notice on your data collection form that there is a column that has food and beverage. That's where we'll enter the what. So they may say they had rice, or they had beans, or they had mango. That would go in that column. The next column has to do with quantity, and we're going to help them with a variety of tools. We'll help them figure out how much they had. And then finally there's a notes section, and that allows you to write in preparation method, additions, or anything else that may be important for the study team to understand what the child or participant had to eat or drink. Let me introduce you very briefly to the tools that we're going to have available for helping the participant quantify what they had to eat or drink, because this is a fairly complex construct for people to understand. So we have 4 different tools available. The first one has to do with standard household measures. We have cup measures that you may be familiar with, both the cups as well as spoon measures, and they're labeled with the amount that they hold. So these will be available to participants in case they want to say that a certain amount of food fit inside of one of the standard cup measures. We also have measures that might be very familiar to them. So we'll have cups that are very typical to the area. They're typically of plastic, and also bowls and serving dishes. And we can ask them to look at these for reference and ask them where on the cup they had their liquid filled to. So for example, they may say it is filled to here, and then we'll do our own calculation to estimate how many ounces are in that cup. The third method are some food models. And these are made of nylon, and they are going to be cut into different sizes. On the bottom they have the actual amount. So for example, this is the 1 teaspoon, and it's written on the back, whereas this is a portion of fish, and it's written on the back 2 ounces. These are used frequently in the United States for this kind of assessment, and we are going to be employing this method there. The fourth method is going to be using some food portion visuals, and these are going to be laminated so they can be used repeatedly, but it's essentially a series of circles and squares that allows children to estimate sizes by pointing to the circle or square that represents the size of the food that they had. In all cases with the quantities, you want to ask open-ended questions and just let them know that you want to ask how much they've had to eat or drink, and that you have a variety of tools that can help them figure out how much. It is okay to use them in combination, and you may have to be quite flexible in how you use all these different tools. There is something that is called data entry rules, and these will be somewhat iterative while on the ground in Kenya. And these data entry rules will be things that help us understand the preparation methods that are typical to the area, or ingredients that are typical. So for example, they may mention that they've had a stew. You'll be able to just write the amount of stew. They may say it is a goat stew, and we'll know that the goat stew has a very standard types of ingredients, so you won't have to ask things like how many onions and how many tomatoes were in there. These will evolve over time, and just to be in touch with your study coordinator to understand what those rules are. Finally, it's important to make sure that the study participant is quite comfortable. They will have had a few minutes with you, so you'll have some rapport during the anthropometric data assessment. However, you'll be asking them some other questions that they're not used to being asked. So make sure they're very comfortable, make sure that they understand that if they didn't have anything to eat or drink, it's perfectly fine to tell you that they had nil. And anything that you can do along the way to make them feel comfortable when you're asking them these questions is perfectly appropriate. And now we're going to take a moment to show you 3 different dietary recalls. They're going to be conducted using the actual data collection forms. So we'll conduct the dietary assessment. They're going to show you a variety of typical intakes and show you the data collection form that was used. And then we'll show you examples of what the data collection forms will look like and point out important factors. Okay, dietary assessment number 1. Hi Nora. Now we just finished weighing and measuring you, and now I'm going to ask you everything you had to eat or drink yesterday. Okay? I'm going to ask you to think back to yesterday starting at lunchtime, and we'll think about lunch and supper and breakfast. And if you had nothing, that is okay. Just say you had nil, and I'm going to write it down. Okay? So we'll first start with lunch. And can you tell me if you had anything to eat or drink for lunch yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah. What did you have to eat or drink?
Ugali.
Ugali?
And beans.
And beans? Okay. And did you have anything for supper?
Yes. Omena.
Okay. Omena? Okay. And did you have anything to drink at lunch or supper?
No, nothing at lunch. No.
Okay.
And then supper, water.
You have water at supper, okay? And before you went to bed last night, anything else to eat or drink?
No.
Okay. And then let's think about this morning. Before you came to school today, did you have anything to eat or drink for breakfast?
Yes, I had mandazi.
Mandazi, okay.
And tea.
And tea. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to ask you about how much you had of the things that you ate yesterday, ate and drank. So let us start with the ugali. Would the ugali fit in any of these cups here? Got lots of. You can look, some people tell me that the ugali fits in the cups.
Yeah.
It fits in this cup.
Mm-hmm.
So go all the way to the top. Okay. And then you told me you had some beans. Do they look like this kind of beans or something different? This kind? How much beans did you have? Was it this much or was it smaller in one of these cups? In this cup?
Mm-hmm.
So these beans in this cup?
Mm-hmm.
All the way to the top. Okay. And then you told me at supper you had some omena. How much omena? Would it have fit in one of these? In this one? Okay. Does it go all the way to the top of this one? Or
Maybe that one.
this one? Okay. So omena, does it fill all the way to the top?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you told me you drank some water. Do you drink from a cup like this or smaller cup? Or this cup? Did your water come to the top or was it not full?
Here.
About here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're doing a very good job. And then you said for breakfast in the morning you had mandazi.
Mm-hmm.
How many mandazi did you have?
3.
3 mandazi? Okay. And you drank some tea?
Yes.
How do you take your tea? Do you put any milk or sugar or do you just drink tea?
No.
Milk? Okay. And how much tea? Is it up to here?
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a little bit about the type of food. So you told me you had ugali.
Mm-hmm.
Was it white or brown?
It was white.
White ugali, okay. And you said the beans look like this? Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. And the water that you drank, do you know if your family boils it or is it from the lake?
No boiling.
No boiling, okay. And you said you had mandazi for breakfast. Do you put anything on your mandazi like jam or butter?
No.
No, okay. Okay, very good. And last night after you had your omena and water, did you go to bed? Did you feel hungry when you went to sleep?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, very good. Okay, and here is a copy of the data collection form once it is completed. Nora was an 11-year-old female, so she was asked the full dietary recall information, which is why I filled out the full grid. You'll see in a couple of cases, for example, with the ugali, I did ask questions about preparation method. For example, I asked whether it was white or brown. But in the case of the mandazi, I did not ask about preparation method because that would have been covered in the data entry rules. That is the same for the beans. I did not ask if it was cooked in oil or things like that. Please make sure you ask the final question on the survey, on the data collection form, whether the child went to bed hungry or not. If the child is under 8 years old, you will not ask the full dietary recall. Instead, you will ask whether or not they had supper the day before. If they did, you'll write what they had to eat in the food and beverage column. However, you do not need to ask them quantity or preparation methods.
All right, we finished measuring you, and now we're going to talk a little bit about everything you ate or drank yesterday. If you had nothing to eat or drink for supper, breakfast, or lunch, then you can say nil or nothing. So first we'll think back to yesterday during lunch. Did you have anything to eat or drink for lunch?
No.
Did you have anything to drink? Okay. Now think back to yesterday after you went home from school. Did you have anything to eat or drink for supper?
I had potatoes.
Okay. Did you have anything to drink with your potatoes?
Water.
Did you have anything else to eat or drink yesterday after school before you went to sleep?
No.
Okay. Now think back to this morning before you came to school. Did you have anything to eat or drink for breakfast?
I had uji.
Did you have anything to drink this morning?
No.
Okay. Did you have any other things to eat or drink this morning before you came to school? Any water, any tea? Okay. Now we will talk about how much you had to eat or drink within the past day. So think back to supper before you went to bed last night. You said you had potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell me how many potatoes you had or how big they were? Here's some examples to help you. Were they the pieces this big or this big or this big?
They were this big.
Okay. Can you tell me how many pieces you had? Or would you like to use these to help?
I had this.
Okay. Could you fit this many pieces in here? Or did you just have this much?
I had more.
Okay.
I had this many.
Okay, good. Would you say that it was about full? Did you have potatoes that could fill this cup?
Yes.
Okay. Good. And you said you had water with supper last night.
Mm-hmm.
Do you drink your water out of a cup this big? Or is it smaller, like this or maybe this?
My cup is this big.
Okay. Was the water full to the top or was it not full?
Not full.
Could you point to how full it was? Was it here, here, here? Okay. All right. All right, and now let's think about breakfast. You remember having uji this morning? Do you drink your uji out of a cup that's this big, or is it smaller?
This big.
Okay, this cup. Did the uji fill it all the way to the top, or less? And can you show me where?
It was all.
It was full?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. And you had mentioned you drank water. Do you know if your family heats up the water? Do they boil the water, or do you drink it out of the lake?
The lake. Do not cook it.
All right. And one more question. Last night, after you had supper, did you feel hungry still before you went to bed?
Yes.
All right. We're done. Thank you. As you can see, I numbered the meals with 1, 2, and 3. I numbered them this way because I was interviewing the student after they had breakfast and before they had lunch. So the last meal they would have been breakfast, and supper the night before, and lunch the previous day. I also wrote down 7 ounces for the amount of water they had. We used the blue cup to estimate how much water they had, and we know the capacity of the blue cup is 14 ounces. The student pointed to about halfway on the cup, so therefore I know that it's about 7 ounces, or half of 14. When the student was reporting the amount of potatoes they ate, you can tell that they were having trouble telling me how many potatoes they ate. And so we used the cup measures as well as the food models of the potato to help the student explain how many potatoes that they ate.
Hi Sylvia. So we just finished taking your height and weight, and right now we're going to do a dietary recall. So I will ask you to remember everything you had to eat or drink from the day before. And since we just finished up lunch right now, we're going to start with supper for yesterday. So if you think back to supper yesterday, did you have anything to eat or drink?
Yeah, I had some wiki and some chapati.
Did you have anything to drink?
Yes, I had some water.
Water. Thank you. So now let's think to breakfast this morning. Did you have anything to drink or eat for breakfast?
I had some tea.
Some tea. Okay. Did you have anything to eat?
No.
No. Okay, thank you. And then if we think to lunch, that was just a little while ago. Did you have anything to eat or drink for lunch?
I had rice with some fish.
Do you remember if you had anything to drink with lunch?
I had water again.
Water. Okay. Very good. And then, did you have anything between supper yesterday and lunch today that we did not discuss yet?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you. So now we're going to talk about how much of everything you had. We will start with supper yesterday. You said you had some skumawiki. You can use any of these to help you tell me how much. Did you have any one of these, or maybe could the skooma fit in one of these bowls?
I had about this much.
About
Together.
that much, okay. Thank you. You also said you had chapati. Do you remember how many pieces of chapati you had?
I had 2 pieces.
Okay, and do you know what size the chapati was? Was it any one of these? Or could you maybe draw it on this paper?
Yeah, it was about this big.
Okay, thank you. The largest one.
Yeah, it was big.
Okay, thank you. then you said you had some water to drink. Do you drink out of a cup like this or one of these other cups?
I drink out of a cup this size.
Okay. Was the cup full of water or was it?
It was full.
It was all the way full. Okay. Thank you. So now when we think about breakfast, you said you had some tea. Again, do you use any one of these cups to measure your tea?
This one.
That
Same
size?
cup.
Okay. And was the tea full to the top or did you have a little bit less?
I had a little bit less.
Okay. Can you indicate for me on this cup how full it was?
Yeah, it was about that full.
That full, okay. Very good. And then for lunch you had rice. Do you know about how much rice you had? Could you fit it in one of these bowls? Or
I could fit it in this bowl.
you could fit it in this bowl, okay. Thank you. You also said you had some fish for lunch. Would any of these help you say how much fish you had? Or would any of these measures?
It was about this big.
This size fish? Okay. Thank you. And I'll just ask you again about the water that you had at lunchtime. About how much water did you have?
I drink out of a cup like this.
This size cup again, okay. And was it full all the way to the top? It was, okay. Thank you. Now I'll just ask you a few more questions. Does your family heat the water or do you get it from the lake?
We heat it.
You heat the water.
We boil it.
Okay. And then do you remember with your tea for breakfast, did it have any milk or sugar?
Yes. Both.
And it had both milk and sugar? Okay. And you had about this size fish. Do you remember if the fish was wet or was it dry?
It was wet.
It was wet. And did it have any type of sauce on top? Any tomatoes or onions?
It had a red tomato sauce.
Okay. Okay, very good. And then one other question is, did you go to bed hungry last night?
No.
A couple of quick notes about the data collection form for this dietary recall. The first has to do with data entry rules. You'll notice that Nikki did not ask the participant about the preparation method for the skooma wiki, and that is because we have determined that that is standardized and does not need to be queried. When it comes to the fish, however, she did ask some follow-on questions about the preparation and additions. When it comes to the quantities for the chapati, you'll notice that she used the circles, and in this case, the participant pointed to the 7-inch circle, and Nikki asked how many of those. And so when she wrote on the data collection form, she says 7 inches times 2.